Hello, I'm Joel Koblenz, and welcome to our series of discussions called Privileged Conversations with Leaders. Today our guest is Dr. Paul Root Wolpe, the world-renowned ethicist who leads the Center for Ethics at Emory University. We wanted to speak with Paul because of his insights that he's gained from being in or around boardrooms and some of the ethical dilemmas that these boards are facing. Paul, thank you very much for meeting with us today and for your participation in this most important subject. I have a series of questions I'd like to ask and gain your insight for our audience. I'm wondering if you could comment on the ethical challenges that corporate boards face.
So there's always a balancing act going on in every corporation, both in the boardroom and in the executive suite, about how we uphold the highest standards of ethical behavior and fulfill the needs of the corporation in profit making. Additionally, what makes corporations so different than, for example, physician ethics, which is an area of ethics that we do a lot of work in, is a physician has one responsibility, and that responsibility is to his patient. But a corporation has multiple stakeholders. They've got employees, they've got shareholders, they've got customers, they've got suppliers. They have to juggle many different kinds of responsibilities. And it's in balancing those responsibilities, I think, where the great ethical conflicts come for complex organizations.
And do you think these complex organizations, they need an ethical cop? Do they need a referee to deal with some of these issues?
One of the things that I've often recommended for boards especially is that at least once a year they bring in someone trained in ethics and they have a conversation, perhaps a training session. Perhaps the person trained in ethics, the ethicist, can come in and give a short presentation to them on some aspect of corporate ethics and allow an opportunity for the board to express some of their own concerns and some of the own dilemmas that they've seen over the years around ethical issues.
If one was to take this from a societal point of view, do you think as a society, based upon your study of history, that we are more ethical today or less? And how do we even measure it?
I don't think is true, which so many people seem to claim, is that we're any less concerned about ethics or that people are any less concerned about thinking about themselves as ethical people. So I don't think people are less ethical than they were before, but I do think that society as a whole may have some less consensus on what the ethical standard should be.
One last question, unless I interrupt you, but one last question. And this relates more to advice. And to paint this picture, let's assume we're all in the boardroom and the chairman has an issue that he wants to discuss. What advice would you give to that chairman to make sure that all the ethical concerns around whatever issue he wants to discuss, which he believes is important to the future of that organization and the way that they function, what advice would you give he or she about making sure that the ethics are raised and considered as part of the decision? So it's right. More than compliance, and it's more than just that decision.
I have the simplest advice in the world for him, and that is ask the question specifically. That is, don't assume that as people give their advice and their feedback that they're going to raise their ethical concerns. The leader has to open up an ethical conversation. And by giving permission for people to mine their own ethical intuitions about things, sometimes things that they otherwise wouldn't mention, thinking of them as not welcome or not on topic, I think they allow people to begin to exercise their ethical muscles, so to speak, and they also make it legitimate in future times for people to bring up ethical problems that they have.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure, my pleasure.
Appreciate all those insights.
Great.